Go ahead and get,
Sorry, Lisa.
that's okay. We'll go ahead and get started, and thank you, Kelly, for remembering we have to record these things. Okay, everyone's got the agenda. Kelly's showing it to us now. First item of business is the approval of the meeting minutes on August 16th. Does someone want to move that we approve the minutes?
We don't need to, do we?
I have
No,
a change.
but I have some changes, so I thought I'd see if anybody, wanted to
Me too.
chime in with me with comments. I have just a couple corrections. So let's start. Anybody else have corrections?
Me.
Dick, go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to find, I have it down here somewhere. The down on the business about alcohol. I guess, I came back from up north and I got even into the door and Deb sent me a reminder, you're gonna come to the meeting, and it was 7 minutes into the meeting. I had my supper in front of me and my wine glass next to me. And I agree, I shouldn't have had my wine glass, but do we have to put it in the minutes that we have a rule that be no alcohol? So my first question is, can we strike it from the minutes? And if not, then I want to change it to say something to the effect that for people at home on a Zoom call, that they should not be drinking alcohol. But I don't want to make it sound like that we have to put a rule in that we shouldn't have alcohol at a meeting. Obviously, we shouldn't be doing that. And you correctly pointed it out, Lisa, to not do it. And I fully respect that. But do we have to have it in the minutes that there's a new rule here, a new ground rule? So my first proposal is to strike it from the minutes completely. And the second is, if that will not pass, then we will alter it to say that people at home on a Zoom call will not be drinking alcoholic beverages. But the way it works now is just feels draconian.
Okay, and thanks for bringing that up, Dick. And just for the record, I brought it up last time, not because I noticed you had a glass of wine. I actually didn't. It was, kind of a standing thing that I have been thinking about since we had our training. Because obviously that's not something that anybody had to think about before the days of Zoom meetings. But I agree that, first of all, I'm fine with it not being in the minutes. I'm also, what I wanted to correct though, is that I had specifically said I didn't want to include this item in the ground rules. I was just bringing it up to the committee members, but I didn't think it needed to be enshrined in the ground rules. So I would support striking that sentence from the minutes, and we can discuss that. But then Kelly, also on page 4, the second bullet under 1, the motion under the ground rules, it should say, giving the sustainability committee members 1 week prior to the meeting to contact staff and chair for suggesting agenda items. That's the actual.
Okay, where's this at? On what page?
Bottom of page 4 of the minutes, which is page 3 of our packet, right there.
Okay.
Giving the sustainability committee members 1 week prior to the meeting to contact staff and chair for suggesting agenda items. Because it says we'll consider them. Keep going down.
Oh, so on the next page?
Nope, go up.
I think it's
the second bullet there. Yep. Last part of that bullet.
So you want that to read what?
Contact staff and chair
Okay.
for suggesting agenda items. And then I'm okay striking that bullet about alcohol, which, by the way, this is kombucha, if anybody's wondering.
but isn't that fermented?
Just like kimchi.
Yeah, I'm gonna hide my wine in an iced tea glass and everything.
In a mug. Mugs work too. Okay, so with those, does anybody else have changes? If not, with those changes, the minutes will be approved. Thank you,
Wait a minute,
Kelly.
we have to vote? We have to vote on it?
No, we don't. Kermit's right. The Robert's Rules of Order, sort of dispense with that pretty simply, instead of having to go to a motion. Okay, we're going to move on to the public comment period, but just before we let Kevin speak, I should ask if any other members of the public are on who would like to make a comment.
Yes, Robert Owen. I'm on by phone.
Okay, thanks, Robert. I'm glad I asked. Okay, so you'll go after Kevin, but before we do that, I need a timekeeper for the meeting, and I was wondering if maybe Dominic would be willing.
Sure.
Okay, so Dominic, when for the public comment period, each person gets up to 3 minutes to speak. And then for the staff report, Kelly provided a written report. So we're going to try to go with the 5 minutes, but we can go as long as 10 minutes. And please, when we're about 3 minutes out from our bigger agenda items, or 5 minutes out, let's say, please just break in and give us a warning. Okay, don't worry about having to wait for someone to stop talking. Okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Dominic. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Kevin. Kevin, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I am Kevin Spittler, and my family and I have lived in Middleton for 14 years. I'd like to start by thanking all of you for your participation and commitment to sustainability by serving on this committee. I suspect that you are familiar with the 2021 Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report released just a few weeks ago, which urges the entire world to step up collective actions to lower the devastating effects of climate change and the increasing frequency of severe climate events. The report has spurred me to get more heavily involved, and hence my first attendance at one of these committee meetings. As an aside, the United Nations General Assembly convened today to once again address climate change and many of the world's other most pressing issues. While there's only so much impact that we can have at the local level, Middleton must not hesitate to act and therefore should move quickly to complete the city's sustainability plan. Related to this, I'm wondering if you're aware that Dane County has a broad 2020 climate action plan with 8 major findings, 6 guiding principles, and 9 categories of recommendations that offer a template for Middleton and a blueprint for collaboration with the county and other jurisdictions. The City of Madison also has a 2019 100% Renewable Madison report, which highlights their current successes, identifies scenarios for achieving 100% renewable energy along with zero net carbon, and suggests actions for accelerating their goals. So while I'm new to the committee's efforts on the plan and have not seen any of the work that's been done to date, it appears from tonight's agenda that there is a recommendation to start a new draft. However, it seems like much of the groundwork has been plowed by the Dane County and Madison efforts, and Middleton's should adopt, tailor, and collaborate on many of these good ideas, as well as those from other outside communities without reinventing the wheel. And while vision statements can be a high-level guide, we need an action plan with specific near-term measures that can be executed while the plan is being finalized, because the IPCC report clearly indicates there is very little time to waste. Thank you for letting me share my concerns. And I happen to know that Robert Owen has many good specific recommendations, which I upfront heartily endorse.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And Robert, we'll move on to you. You have 3 minutes. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. My name is Robert Owen. I live at 1311 Middleton Street. I'm commenting on the proposed procedure for enacting a city sustainability plan and the importance of keeping pressure on city departments to decarbonize while the planning process proceeds. As to the sustainability plan, I think it's very important to finish the planning process before the spring 2023 election. And to that end, I encourage this committee to adopt a procedure in which plan sections are written initially by small groups of 2 or 3 volunteer committee members and then brought to the Sustainability Committee meetings for refinement. As to the decarbonization process progress, there are some areas in which the city is struggling. Department heads should be reminded of the city's decarbonization commitments. The planning process should not be an excuse for more backsliding. In particular, the fleet manager should be buying electric vehicles now, not considering hybrid vehicles for the police department. And he should be buying electric pickup trucks like the Ford 150 Lightning, not gas trucks for the Parks Department. He should also be buying electric, not diesel tractors. The Parks Department and golf course should be buying only electric or cordless models for all small yard and park maintenance equipment, including push mowers, chainsaws, pole saws, leaf blowers, edgers, trimmers, etc. To extend runtime, the city should buy multiple battery packs and use field charging from a Ford Lightning pickup or a plug in a park, and sometimes corded equipment. The Parks Department should be buying only electric riding mowers. The golf course should be doing likewise as specialized golf course mowers become available. In the case of gas or diesel vehicles or equipment costing over $50,000 in total, the department requesting the vehicle or equipment should explain in writing in its initial budget request whether there's an electric alternative, and if there is, detail why the fossil fuel alternative is cheaper on a life cycle cost basis. If there's not currently an electric alternative, but will be within a few years, the department should explain why it can't wait a few years to replace the fossil fuel vehicle. Vehicle and equipment budget requests without required cost comparisons and availability statements should be disapproved. There should be a presumption against buying fossil fueled equipment, which a department must rebut to buy it. This is the opposite of current practice at the Middleton Fleet and at Pleasant View. Reversing de facto present procurement policies in favor of fossil fueled equipment will save the city money, improve employee health by reducing exposure to air pollution, and reduce noise irritation to employees, golfers, and residents. It will reduce carbon footprint. Finally, to reduce building carbon footprint, the city should start implementing a policy this year requiring that failing water heaters, air conditioners, and gas furnaces in city buildings be replaced by heat pumps. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, let's move on then to the staff report. I mentioned Kelly had circulated her written report, which is a new thing that we're doing in order to focus or conserve our time as a committee. Rather than hearing the report, we are expected to read it now and come to Kelly with any questions. So I'll open the floor to anyone who might have questions for Kelly other than the big question, which is the last item in her report, and she'll reveal it when she's ready.
So do you want me to, in the future, not do a public staff report? Because if I don't do a public one, then it'll just be the committee who hears the city environmental sustainability happenings.
Oh, I thought the staff report was circulated among the public. So if that was not the case, then please go ahead and give us like a high-level overview, please.
Well, I suppose I could prepare one for the packet and put it in the packet ahead of time. I don't know, maybe you could give me some guidance on what you want to see. But I can give it a brief rundown now, I guess. Do you want me to continue?
Well, I have Dick and Kermit would like to say something.
Yeah,
Dick, we'll go with you first.
Okay, so I was assuming that what you did with this, the summary that we saw was in the overview packet. I think that's important because there's really important stuff that you're doing. I think the public should know about it. And your summary has it. And if they're not seeing it, then that's a problem. So I say for tonight, you've got to summarize what you've put in the packet that we would see. And that gives us a chance to know ahead of time, if we got some particular questions we can ask you. But I think it should be something that the public gets a chance to see ahead of time. So my recommendation is for the future, you put that in the packet that goes out.
Kermit.
Okay.
Yeah, and my comments are essentially in line with that. I was going to start with a question, essentially, is there some reason why the public at large wouldn't have access or shouldn't have access to this summary document? I can't think of any in particular. If there's like mention of contracts or stuff that we need to follow some particular protocols with, then let's address that. But I think some version of this document would seem to be fine for public access without needing to go through a freedom of information request. Just make it part of the agenda packet.
Okay, and then not talk about it in the meeting, or not present it during the meeting.
Yeah, just
Okay.
brief discussion.
Okay. So for this time, the update is that there's we got the battery storage grant, or we are going to process the contract, hopefully in the next 3 weeks. So hopefully the battery storage project the police department can begin sometime in October, November. We were awarded the $100,000 grant by the Public Service Commission to do a feasibility study for the microgrid out in the west side of Middleton in the business district. And that will be in conjunction with a lot of community partners, Spectrum, UW Health, Kiva, the airport, MG&E, HGA, and a number of other businesses will all be involved in that. And UW Madison is involved. A citizen, Bartlett Durand, is also involved in that project. So it's going to be pretty wide ranging. And that contract will be with us in the city in the next couple weeks. So hopefully that project will also start this fall. So it's going to be a very busy fall, which is good. And then I just typed out a number of events that I'll be speaking at in October. There's 3 different events, 2 workshops with MG&E and Slipstream, and 1 with the University of Wisconsin to talk about energy technologies for municipalities. And I followed up with Matt Amundsen about putting bubblers downtown as part of our reduction in waste and reduction in plastic, and to help start maybe a potential water bottle program. And he liked the idea, but they have 0 staff time to manage seasonal bubblers. So he said he would like to see the bubblers installed at a business so that the infrastructure can be inside the business and it can be year round. So that would take, we would have to consult and work closely with the chamber and then businesses to identify businesses that might be interested in having something like that on the face of their business downtown somewhere. And I wanted to thank the volunteers for helping to clean up at the recycling center last Sunday. Marty, a staff member, really appreciated it. He thought we got a lot done, and he's really pleased with the center, how it looks now. So thank you for that. I presented all the ARPA funding requests to finance over the last 2 weeks. And all of that will now be discussed by finance this week. And they'll be coming up with a few scenarios over the next week or 2, and then they will take those scenarios to council in October, and then council will deliberate and select a likely scenario for budget for 2022. So if you do have any interest in speaking or being involved in that process or hearing any of the deliberation, the next 2 council meetings will be the 2 council meetings where they will probably deliberate some of the budget items. I have some follow-ups to do with finance committee members about some of the items. So it's a really busy season for the city. Lots of emails, lots of follow-ups, lots of questions to answer for different budget items. But we have a lot actually in sustainability. There's solar projects at our utility, our golf course, about a $500,000 request for ARPA funding for low income of naturally occurring affordable housing, energy efficiency, and then energy reporting software. So there's quite a bit in there. And then there's also fleet vehicles, which will also play into sustainability quite heavily, depending on what decisions are made about hybrid patrol cars or any kind of EV decisions that are discussed over the next week or two. So it's an important time to speak up to your alders about these things. And then I think I'm going to skip to the really good news that I have for all of you. This is for the Sustainability Committee. You were nominated for a really large award with the Wisconsin Policy Forum. It's a statewide group. They have a lot of fairly high-profile awards, and the Middleton Sustainability Committee was awarded the Innovation Award of the Year, and it's a statewide award, and it's a very big one, and they're going to come send a team here with video cameras to interview some of you and go around town with committee members to survey some of the sustainability projects. And they make a really nice video from that we can use on the city website to talk about the sustainability team. And it's actually not complete, it's official as far as getting the award, but they haven't done the press release yet. So I'm sort of jumping the gun and telling you this. So don't call the New York Times yet. Wait till mid-October to do that. And there'll be a formal press release and it'll go through the whole press gamut. So right now, this is your information, but I wanted to congratulate you all for the work that you've done. The Sustainability Committee's been doing important work for the last about 11 or 12 years and has really pushed the city and made huge strides and established a sustainability plan when other cities didn't have one, the county didn't have one. It was really, Middleton was one of the first to do both the resolution and also the sustainability plan with public involvement and engagement. So this is a celebration of all of those years of hard work and your continued work. So congratulations.
Great. Well, congratulations, everybody. That's excellent news, Kelly. And please share the press release when it comes out. And is there an award ceremony that we should be thinking of? Is it virtual? Is it in person?
10
There
minutes
is
on staff
awards.
report.
What?
5 minutes.
No, we're up at where you hit 10 minutes on the staff report, just FYI.
Okay. Thanks, Dominic.
Just a quick question, is the public on and hearing the news about that? I don't know who's on.
2 members are, but we'll just trust Kevin and Robert to
Oh, okay.
sit on this for a while.
Okay.
Dick, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, I just have a question about the battery storage at the police station. Can you give me a little more information, give us a little more information about that? I mean, are we storing a significant amount of solar energy there, or what is this battery? I've heard the word battery storage, but I don't have a sense of what this actually is.
Well, we have existing solar, about 100 kW system on the rooftop, and there's a generator there. And it's where our 911 call center is housed, and it's also where the emergency management center is. So in the event of like the flood or during the Paradigm shooting, that becomes the central location for the county and all of the EMS, police, any kind of emergency institutions will then work from the police station. So the idea is that by having battery storage there that can store solar power and also power from the generator or grid, it can work as an islanded microgrid in the event of a power outage. The generator really only has about 24 hours of power available, and then they will be they'll be offline. And so it's a resiliency, adds resiliency. It can also save a little bit of money on bills because you can do shaving. You can use the stored energy during certain times of the day when electricity is very expensive, and then not use it when electricity is very cheap. So there's several things you can do with having battery storage, but the main thing is resiliency and being able to island systems in that building if there were an power outage.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to do a little more description of what the battery storage is how we describe it, maybe on your websites, cities' websites and whatever, just saying there's battery storage there. I mean, obviously solar is during the day and we're trying to have battery storage that would last into the evening where we're still using air conditioning. And so it's a question is the capacity of this huge? Clearly the resiliency issue about the emergency call center and stuff is really important. So I think just describing what the battery storage is would be helpful, even in our own minutes, but even on the city website, just saying there's this battery storage doesn't really tell us too much what it means.
I think we'll get more information. It hasn't been designed yet, so we don't know exactly the capability or what size battery and what we want it to do. So there was a pretty good article written when we first got the grant, and then months and months have passed because that's the nature of the PSC and the Department of Energy. It takes a really long time for these things to finally launch. It's not the city, like we're waiting on the Department of Energy to give us our paperwork back so we can begin the project. But then once that happens, it'll be designed, and I think we'll be able to speak better about it and know more about its capability and what it can do once we get into the design and engineering of it.
Maybe we can get an update or a presentation, brief presentation on that in the future. Okay, any other questions, comments right now for Kelly? If anybody has things they want to discuss with her that came out of the report, you can always reach out to her directly. Okay, thank you, Kelly, for that. And also it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that the committee would not be an award-winning committee were it not for excellent staff support that you provide and that Abby provided prior to you. So many thanks to both you and Abby and everyone else who has helped out. Okay, let's move on to the ground rules. And Dominic, forewarning, this might take more than 5 minutes because I know we're gonna have a discussion about the length of the meeting, but just Kelly, if you'll scroll to the amended revised ground rules. What I did is I accepted all the changes that didn't generate any discussion or disagreement. So the changes that are showing now relate to the public comment period. There was consensus, or at least seemed to be consensus, that we not limit the public comment period to items that are on the agenda, even though that was the city's recommendation. So we broadened that or dropped that part and then made it clear that we will not be addressing comments made during the public comment period except in extraordinary circumstances. And then the other change is on the next page, and that is giving the committee members 1 week to notify me and Kelly about any items they would like us to consider putting on the agenda. It doesn't mean it will automatically go on that month's agenda. It all depends on what else is in the queue and the urgency of the timeliness of the agenda item that you suggest. So those are the two changes that I took down. And I guess at this time, I'm going to ask Dick if he would like to make a motion for any, for accepting possibly with an amendment.
Well, make a motion. I mean, I asked you for us to discuss that we would just as a policy not say that the meeting is only going to last 9 minutes, because every single meeting that we've had for the last year, and quite frankly, for the whole 3 or more years that I've been on this committee, we have never ended a meeting in 90 minutes. This is a very complex, complicated topic area, sustainability. We have a lot of stuff to always cover. And I would just like to see us not kind of micromanaging the meeting time where we have to constantly make a motion for 5 minutes or 20 minutes to extend the meeting. That takes time. Sure, we'd like to end the meeting less than 2 hours. So I just like to make a motion, I guess, that under the rules here that that we would have normal meetings would be 2 hours, and you know, and the chair has the discretion in with Kelly deciding on the agenda. If we don't have a whole lot of things to to cover, you can make the agenda shorter than 2 hours. But let's not have to come up to 90 minutes. Oh God, we need another 20 minutes to discuss something. Or like happened another time that we were debating, well, is it an hour, half an hour extension or 15 minutes extension? And then we have to extend it another 5 minutes. And then we were over that really, and we should have said, well, we should add a point of order. We've extended beyond the 5 minutes we already extended the second time. I just like to get us away from that, recognize that we're probably a 2-hour meeting. And if you want to have it so it's exactly 2 hours and we need to have a motion to extend it beyond it, I'm fine with that. But I'd like to get away from this 90-minute limitation, which we've always gone over because there's just so much to cover.
Thank
So
you,
I'll
Dick. Katie, I see your hand is raised.
Thanks. I just want to respectfully say that some of us have more than one committee that we're on, and some of us have more than one meeting per evening. I often have 2 meetings on this evening. And if a meeting goes to 2 hours, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Dick, but I feel like it is on us to design the agenda to fit into a 90-minute meeting.
Deb,
I also have 2 meetings. I have the Friends of Pheasant Branch, which is always a 2-hour meeting. And I agree with Dick. I think this is important enough. I'm willing to spend 4 hours on a Monday. Actually, I'm coming early. I'm cutting off a half hour of my Friends of Pheasant Branch meeting. But I just think we have too much to talk about to limit it to 90 minutes. And when you take 5 minutes for a discussion of something because we've got such a short amount of time, I just don't think that's spreading our time wisely on important issues. So I agree with Dick.
So Deb, do you take the sustainability priority over Friends of Pheasant Branch?
I do.
Okay.
Unless there's some vote that I have to be there to meet quorum with the friends. But they also are helping me by putting my part of the agenda, which would be to give them information on the education committee, because I chair that. They put that up so I can leave by 6:30 to get to this meeting. So.
Dominic?
First, I'll cut myself off by saying we're out of time for this agenda item. But secondly, I would propose that we consider breaking out into subgroups and bringing in more polished updates and presentations here if possible to make better use of this time, but also allow for a lot more work to be done, important work to be done for this important committee. That's a thought.
Thank you. Kermit?
I appreciate the concerns on both sides that are being raised so far. I, at the same time, find myself falling in sympathy with Katie that keeping it at nominally at 90 minutes and just being aware that we can extend if we need to. And otherwise, I guess part of my concern is we say now it's 2 hours and it turns into 2.5. Now, maybe that's unduly cynical, or maybe that's, but at the same time, I fear that that would be an unfortunate side effect of saying, oh, well, we got 2 hours now. I think aiming for 90 and deliberately making extensions and making that process brisker, I think is a way that I would lobby for, which would, I think, respect Katie's concern for keeping things shorter and allow us to go longer. And for that matter, Dominic's suggestion, I think, could be beneficial in terms of tightening things up. So my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, members, for all those comments. Do any of the other members want to weigh in? I know for the newer members, it might be difficult because you haven't experienced what Kermit just reminded me of, the reason why we have this rule is because early on in my term as chair, the meetings were going 2.5 hours long. And that seemed unnecessary because it wasn't always the result of having so much to do or a super busy agenda. It was, maybe not being as efficient in our discussion and our meeting prep, as we could have been. So I will say that since we instituted the 90-minute rule, I think our meetings have, you're right, Dick, that they have extended to typically around 8:30, but they haven't gone longer than that. And I think everybody is, monitoring themselves, policing themselves, and trying to, stay focused on, well, let's just talk about what we're here to talk about and not get sidetracked. So I do think we're being more efficient. I know Kelly and I, one thing we need to do is build more time in for discussion and Q&A. But Dominic, you described what my vision is, which is that, and that's why we have these subgroups now to work on the items in the work plan. The idea is that we should be able to just come with a recommendation, and I provided a written report on the Good Neighbor Festival so that you all can be informed, but we don't necessarily have to have a round robin discussion of how did it go. If everybody reads that in advance, they'll know how it went and we can just discuss it briefly. So Spencer, Christy, Kelsey, any comments? Daphne, you're a voting member now, Daphne.
I'm for the 90-minute. I've seen them go long, and I feel like we can be more efficient in our subgroups and communication style.
I guess the 90 minutes, I see both sides as well. I like the 90 minutes, Christy. I'm standing right now, sitting for when the meetings have gone 2 hours, sitting for that long. And just on one Zoom is kind of difficult, but luckily I have a standing desk and I'm starting this one sitting. And I'm also keen to what you said about, being more efficient with the way we talk. I know a few times in the early meetings, I went on too long and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm contributing to the long meetings. So I need to be more efficient myself. So those are my thoughts.
And I just want to make it clear, I really don't want to cut off anyone or make them think that their comments aren't worthwhile. It's just, there are a lot of times when I have things in my head and I just decide, nah, it's not that important right now.
Yeah.
If it's that important, I'll remember it for an email. Well, can I make a suggestion? What if we change?
Lisa, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Daphne shared in the chat. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, okay.
Show that.
Daphne likes the 90 minutes, but is okay with extending. So thank you, Daphne. What I was going to suggest is, Kelly, if you show us the line at the bottom of page, well, I think it's 1. So scroll, there it is. How about, unless otherwise posted, meetings will last no longer than 90 minutes unless a majority of members vote to extend the time by up to 30 minutes. And that gets us past, that would get us past the micro managing at the end where it's 5 minutes extension and then we have to have another one. What if we assign 8 o'clock as the adjournment time? If we need to extend it, we just do it up to 8:30 and take whatever time we need of that 30-minute slot. It doesn't mean we have to go until 8:30, but that way we won't have to have multiple motions. It'll be a little less crazy at the end.
I think that's a reasonable compromise, and I can go with that.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to accept the revised ground rules with that addition?
Make that motion to accept the ground rules with the addition of the 90 minutes with the optional option for the majority of members to extend it for 30 minutes.
Thank you, Spencer.
Second.
Daphne seconded.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Thank you. We'll make the changes and get these out to everybody for next time. Okay, let's move on to talk about the work plan items then. And here too, if gonna call on people, and if you don't have anything for your activity to report, just say maybe next time, or, just let us know you don't have anything. So in order, the Celebration group, I know that one's farther out into 2022, but whoever is on that group, does anybody have anything to report on that?
Maybe next time.
Perfect. Kelly's she's leading by example. Okay, the LED bulb exchange group.
Maybe next time. No, it won't be next time. I know it won't be. We're talking about April. I'm not starting any meetings until at least 2 months prior.
Well, do we not need to buy some bulbs this year though?
Oh, they're already on order, yeah.
Okay,
I'm getting bulbs.
okay, sounds good. All right, Good Neighbor Festival. I prepared the report that's in the packet, and there are even some photos in there, one of which Kelly, the one that shows the all together now, make Middleton sustainable. I think that should be on our website. That's like such an awesome picture. I didn't take it. I don't know who did, but it's a great one. We had a really good experience. Deb and Kermit and Daphne and Dean from the public, we all worked together to plan the booth and plan the parade. You see the lessons learned that we came up with. The big one was we need more people, and we think it would also be a good idea to have as large a presence from the committee members and their families as possible. So this was our first year trying this. We didn't get as large of a contingent as we had hoped to get. Same thing with the green team. It would be great if we could get a very large group at the parade, and maybe twice as many people as we had staffing the booth, so that we can either have 3 people there at one time, or just have, shorter shifts. And Daphne especially, well, Daphne won't be doing it next year, but she was the lone student, and she was there literally every shift. We liked our handouts, thought they were effective and useful. We probably had too much in the way of paper, both the number of different items available, but then also the quantity of each one. So that's a lesson learned. We thought publicity would be a good thing for next year. This, again, it's our first time trying it. I could see us really building up the, not the suspense, but some excitement about being able to drop by our booth for something. We'll have the Sustainable City Plan in the works at that time next year, so that might be something. Now we're going to be an award-winning committee, so that's always, Kermit, I thought of you when I thought of us being an award-winning committee, that's newsworthy. Maybe not for the Good Neighbor Festival, but just in general. So we do recommend doing this next year, as long as we can implement the lessons learned. And if we do it next year, that would mean everybody should mark their calendars for that last weekend of August to be there. I think we would stick with just the Saturday, Sunday combination, not show up on Friday night as well. So please mark your calendars for the last weekend of August, and especially consider joining us in the parade. And if you can also take a shift at the booth to talk to our fellow Middletonians about sustainability, that would be important too. Any questions?
Lisa, you did a great job with this report. Thank you for putting this together. And guys, thank you for all the work you did. You read through it, lots of hours, lots of work for you guys. So I'm very impressed, and I'm glad you guys all did that and put it all together here. Thank you.
Thanks, Spencer. Any other comments? If not, we'll move on to the resolution, MCP-ASD resolution. Daphne, do you have anything?
Maybe next time.
Okay, good. All right, that takes us to the Sustainable U. We're going to launch Sustainable U, partnering with the library. The first one's going to be October 21st at 6:30 p.m. That's a Thursday. And our first speaker, appropriately, will be Kelly. She's going to, we have 2 speakers. The plan is to have 2 speakers, or two topics each time. So this first one is going to lay the foundation for the whole series, explain what sustainability is, why it's important, what Middleton is doing, and what residents and businesses can do to help us achieve our goals. We had, and then the second topic is going to be managing leaves to help the lakes. So leaf-free streets will be the focus there. It's very timely for October. And we've already got Crystal Campbell lined up from Mam Swap. We thought we would do the third Thursday of every month until, or not every month, every other month, until Deb reached out to me and let me know that the Friends have their educational activity on that day. So go ahead, Deb.
At the same time as
At the
well.
same time, and not only is that a conflict for our committee, but it's overlapping the group, a large group of people that we would like to attract. So Deb, we need to coordinate with you, our subgroup needs to coordinate with you to try to figure out, should we move all of them? Are there a few that we should stick with that third Thursday and partner with the Friends and, get double the attendance? So we have to work that one out. December, we're planning to do Saltwise. That's a January thing that Saltwise Wisconsin does, but we want to feature it in December. And then we're also talking about beneficial electrification. We just had a great meeting last Tuesday. I still have to write up the notes for that. And Kelly shared a bunch of really good ideas afterwards. So we had planned to come up with an entire schedule to share with all of you. But since there is this question about when to put them, and since we don't have to do a flyer for the whole series, so that kind of took the pressure off of us to nail down everything right off the bat. But mark your calendars for October 21st at 6:30 if you want to tune in and be there at the start of our award-winning committee's Sustainable Use Series. I see Dominic and then Katie.
I'm sure you've mentioned it before, but will these be recorded and put online?
Yes.
Awesome,
Yep,
thanks.
and one of the questions we have is, should we just post them on the library's YouTube account and then have the city link to that so that we can have a complete tally of anybody who, all the numbers of people who may have viewed it, or should we post in both places? Katie.
Thanks. Do we still have some yard signs for leaf-free streets? There were a bunch of them at City Hall last year.
Kelly?
Yes, we do have a lot. They're still at City Hall, and we have quite a few. So we'll put those out and advertise that we have them.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. The only other thing I'll add is that we do want to publicize these events. And so one thing I thought, Katie, is maybe the alders would be, if you have a distribution list of constituents. I don't know if anyone does. I don't think my alder does, but it would be great to get some publicity and encouragement for people to attend. I think it would also be great to have some of the alder people, make an appearance once in a while. Dominic?
Yeah, to that end, does either the city or the sustainability committee or any of kind of our partner organizations have a social media presence? Nextdoor, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I'm not on most of these, but
The city does, and the library does, and the library is actually going to be publicizing this. It's on their website now, and it should be in their newsletter. And we'll be asking the city to send out a message to everybody. We need to work on a flyer for publicizing it, and we'll be doing that in the coming weeks. So, okay. If there are no other questions, then next time we'll have more detail on the proposed schedule and the topics and speakers. Spencer, do you have anything on zoning?
No, we haven't had another meeting recently, so I'm not sure where we're at on that, but I will cue everyone in when I hear more.
Okay. And then one last thing, it's tied to the work plan, but it isn't actually in there because I didn't know about this activity when we wrote the work plan. But this Thursday, Spencer, I think you're going to be there, Spencer. He and I are part of this visioning panel. community influencers, which kind of amused me that I'm a community influencer. I don't feel like one. Anyway, we're on this panel. From what I can tell, it's not a public event. I thought it was, but I think it's just a roundtable discussion of what do we want to see in the city's strategic plan. And so since Spencer and I are both there, I think it's safe to say there will be a lot of sustainability and probably even equity related topics coming up during that panel discussion. We can report to you guys next time what comes of that.
And I'm sorry, what group is that sponsoring it, or?
Well, it's the strategic, the ad hoc, or the strategic planning ad hoc committee. And literally the first activity for me, at least, is this panel conversation about what do we envision for the strategic plan. I'm not quite sure what the planning process is going to entail. I know what I would want it to look like if I were conducting this for, as a consultant, but we haven't gotten any of that type of information yet. So we hope to find out more on Thursday morning. And like I said, can let you all know next time. Okay, let's move on to our last big agenda item, which is it says Sustainable Middleton Plan. I think we all had Sustainable Middleton on our minds, but it's the Sustainable City Plan for Middleton. And we shared just a short plan for updating, revising the plan for 2022. Kelly and I met on I think it was August 31st. Got together at the library and spent a couple hours going over what we both thought would be the most useful for our city and for the committee, and came up with the guiding principles that I hope you all have read. We had 9 of them. The first one is that it needs to be action oriented, and it has to have a realistic set of achievable metrics and achievable actions. I went through I don't have my notes with me now, but I went through the Sustainable City Plan as it was revised in 2017. And there were something like 80 indicators and over 110 actions. And it seems like, plans should be helpful guides to hold ourselves accountable for getting some work done and achieving some progress. And if we put too much activity in a plan, it's going to be overwhelming. We won't be able to check things off. And if we're not successful in completing these actions, that's going to have, a demoralizing effect and make us start to wonder, what's the point? So we really wanted to make it an action-oriented, realistic plan. We absolutely wanted to make sure that this plan, like the earlier one, reflected public input. So we wanted to have 2 opportunities, or 2 organized opportunities to get public input. One, in the beginning, when we're just starting to come up with ideas, that's the actual input. And then 2, later on, once we take that information that we receive from the public and turn it into a plan, we want to come back and get their feedback to let us know how well we did in incorporating their ideas. So we have two time periods when we would be conducting. Sorry about my dog. I don't know where the rest of my family is. We'll just have to listen to her. But there will be 2 public consultation opportunities. We want to be very transparent about what it is that we're doing. So in a way, there will be like this ongoing engagement with the public because they should be able to hear and read about what we're doing. So we would have, the website updated as we make progress, and also we'll have information at our meetings. The plan, we both had looked at different plans, and I feel it's very important to make sure if this is going to be a public plan and we want help from the public in achieving our goals, we need to make it user-friendly. And that could mean having different interfaces on the web, click here if you want to read about what residents can do, click here if you want to read what businesses can do, here's what, governments can do, and have it, basically saying similar things, but tailored to a particular audience and a particular reading level. I think it would be wonderful if we could get it translated into Spanish. So we really want to make sure that this is a plan that a member of the public could pick up and read and do something with. We want to share the success stories and highlight examples of things that people, everyday residents or businesses are already doing, to have it be kind of a neighbor to neighbor, have that feel to it. And the UN Sustainable Development Goals is something we feel like we want to connect to. And the measurable metrics that we thought would be useful would date back to 2018. I've got the footnote there. This is the one of the things we'll need is that system that Kelly has talked to us about the last couple of meetings, getting a subscription to or purchasing the package. I'm not sure which one it is. But that's going to be critical to figure out, okay, what are our benchmarks and what are the, actual numerical goals we're going to try to achieve over the period of the plan. We are interested in sustainability for all. And so we want to make sure that we view everything in the plan through a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion so that we're not making assumptions that we shouldn't. And we thought it would be useful to have the plan updated every 3 years because of the way things change so rapidly. And then each year, the idea would be for the Sustainability Committee to build its 1-year work plan, in an attempt to drive those actions, achieve those actions in the Sustainable City Plan. I wanted to also mention that, plans are useful as long as they are not duplicating unnecessarily what other plans do. So, we've got the comp plan, and within that, there's the Green City chapter, and it makes sense for the Sustainable City Plan to fall under that one, line up with the Green City chapter, not be out here. So these are all interrelated, and it also makes sense to look to the Dane County plan for ideas to partner because, building community partnerships will be important. And so that's another foundation for the plan itself. So those are the guiding principles. I'll quickly just go over the approach. We thought we'd start with the vision statements that are currently in the Sustainable City Plan. I don't think we ever got to the point of writing new ones for the greenhouse gas emissions and health. So we need to polish those vision statements and add new ones for the new chapters. We thought it would be good to have the committee identify its priorities over a 3-year period. And then, again, visualizing it, here's what we're doing in years 1 through 3. And then here's, dimmed out, here's where we're going next. And here's where we're going to go after that. So have these 3 tiers of this is coming up immediately. This is where we're going next. And here's where we're going to, not wrap up, but this is what's going to be going on in the 3rd tier. Identifying the benchmarks and the tasks to achieve whatever our priorities are over the time period, specifically where are we right now and who has to do what in order to get us to our goal by 2030, which would be the end of this at least 10-year or 9-year effort. And then go with the public input activities, whether or not we need to hire a consultant to help us conduct those, that'll depend on how elaborate we want to get with our public input. And then, of course, the council will need to approve the plan. So the timeline we came up with has us wrapping this up and presenting the plan to council in August of next year. And the first step is, of course, presenting this concept to you all and getting your go ahead or your, edits and then a go ahead. And then we wanted to update our website because right now we have the 2010 Sustainable City Plan linked, and it's really out of date and no longer driving the work that we're doing. So we need to figure out what to put in its place. In October, Kelly and I, mainly I, because I know Kelly, she's mentioned it's a busy end of the year, but I would like to take the draft vision statements that we've got and with your input, decide on 3 tiers of priorities and also come up with some questions we want answered through the public input process. Start drafting the actual text and figuring out what we want for the metrics in November and making a decision with all of you on what the public input process will look like. Then in December, we'll have a chance to share or give a promo for public input opportunities that will be coming up in January. We can do that during our sustainable use session. So that'll be nice. We could even share, depending on what other topics we come up with, we could share some of the ideas that we have for draft vision statements and priorities. Conduct the public input or listening sessions, and then spend March and April, refining everything, incorporating input into the drafts. And I don't know what the strategic planning process is going to come up with or when, but it's a good idea to, make sure that we're incorporating those ideas in as well. And then in May, you all would have a chance to review and approve the draft plan, which would then go out to the public in June. The committee, in July, it says committee review of draft plan. That's a reference to not you all, but other committees, because we've, all the other city entities, committees, commissions, and boards should have a chance to provide us with input, just like they did for the comp plan. And then once we refine, update the plan to incorporate what we think is important input, present it to council for approval, post it, and have some sort of splash at the Good Neighbor Festival. So that's the timeline that we're suggesting. And then finally, we need to come up with a priority. And for those of you who have spent a lot of time looking at the Sustainable City Plan as it was revised in 2017, it has, it's got health, greenhouse gas emissions, energy, transportation, solid waste, water, land use. I'm sure I'm missing, food, fair trade, and economic development or workforce development. I forget how that one's phrased. We have a lot of really important things in there that we can't work on because we don't have a deep bench. We only have Kelly and us and maybe some consultant time. So wanting to really narrow the focus and make it as beneficial as possible for our city and our goals. We talked about focusing on the goal of meeting 100% of community energy needs through renewable sources by 2050. There's an interim goal, or there are interim goals for 2030, and I've put those on the second page of this. For reducing energy use, the city is, this is from the council resolution, the goal is to get the city at 15% reduction and the community at 10%, meeting electric needs through renewable sources, 80% for the city, 66 for the community, and then meeting all energy needs. So they were getting at the fleet, meet all energy needs through renewables, 66% for the city and 21% for the community. And it seems like this priority to me makes the most sense because, like I said, council approved this resolution, so this was important. It's strategy number 1 in the Green City chapter. And, we all know climate change is not just knocking at our door, it's already come in. And so it seems like this is, probably the most critical of all of our tasks is trying to, move away as quickly as possible. That's how it's phrased in the comp plan move as quickly as possible to renewable sources. So we thought that would make a good place to begin. And with that, I'll open it up for reactions. Don't all speak at once. Dick.
Well, having worked on that, city, what do we call it? The city green plan or whatever it was about a year ago.
The comp plan Green City chapter.
Yeah, the comprehensive plan. Yeah, the green chapter. I mean, you mentioned all the various topics. What was overwhelming in that was the realization that there are some really important topics. And for example, I know something about water, but the whole land use section, and glad we have somebody on our committee who knows something about that. But this, I'm wondering if, to help us get started so we have a common voice to pull this together, if we shouldn't try to hire a consultant. I think we have some uncommitted money out of our current year's budget, and then that would lapse over into the next year when we'd have new budget. Whether we shouldn't try to get somebody who could really put their focus on this to give us something to start with that we could react to, rather than saying, well, I mean, I like what you've got here. I think you've done a really good job of covering the various issues and things. But I feel like that now you're going to ask the committee members, well, where can we step up? And it's kind of overwhelming. And having worked on the city plan a year ago, realized, wow, you know, and now to do a whole new sustainability plan, and like the speaker, the citizen that spoke up at the very beginning, you know, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. But this is going to take some real coordination and time of somebody who's got the expertise and has the time and be able to focus putting it together. So I would rather be reacting to things and adding advice about something rather than being assigned to write something. I guess that's what worries me.
Thank you for that, Dick. And just to clarify, it wasn't my intention, Kelly, maybe it was yours, but we never really talked about it. It wasn't my intention to ask the committee members to write chapters. In fact, to me, the revision, and I don't know the history of the 2017 revision. I do know we had a consultant assist with that. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that the draft that we got was not the most helpful. I don't know what we paid for that, but again, you know, if we have 100 and some actions that someone is supposed to take, there was no guidance as to, you know, these are the top ones, focus on these first. You know, it was just a very long list of things that we could do. And I worry when I see a plan like that it's overwhelming and you don't know where to start. So it wasn't my intention that the committee members would write the plan. I think, you know, I am dedicating my time to this. I know Kelly's got a lot on her plate, but I suspect she has time to assist with some things. And then the idea would be to check in with all of you at the committee meetings, you know, share whatever we're working on in advance of the meeting so that you can come and give us you react to what it is that we've put together. But if the committee wants to go in the direction of having a consultant, I won't object. I mean, it certainly would free up a lot of my time. I've spent a lot of my career working with consultants and they do an excellent job, but sometimes they do the same thing for different groups because, you know, if you're looking for surgery, you know, you talk to a surgeon, they're going to operate on you. So, you know, that's the solution. And sometimes consultants do similar things over and over again and don't.
Well, I wasn't proposing that we hire a consulting firm to provide a boilerplate plan. I guess I was looking for more of a science writer or somebody maybe at the university who's doing a PhD in something like this that we could hire to really put some focus on it. But yeah, consultants, I've worked with a lot of consultants over my career in the water field, and a lot of the stuff, they charge a lot of money, and sometimes you don't get a lot of really good innovative stuff. So yeah, I'm not looking to hire a consulting firm to, just pour money out and have them produce a plan for us. So I'm looking for somebody who has some expertise and the time that would be able to kind of put the whole vision together here and shape it. And we would be able to interact with this person with ideas of things we wanted to see included, and then let that person shape it so we can react to it. I guess that was what I was thinking about.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Dominic, we'll go to you next and then Kermit.
Do we feel that we have kind of sufficient information to form an actionable plan? Because I think where we want to go, I think is pretty clear to all of us where we want to end up. But it's important, as you've highlighted multiple times, Lisa, to recognize our limited bandwidth and our limited resources. And I really, maybe I'm just not paying attention, but I just don't see a ton of information available that kind of identifies the lowest hanging fruit. Where should we focus to make the biggest dent the fastest? And that seems like that could be a worthwhile consultant activity. Like say, hey, consultant, this is where we want to go. Survey, kind of our scope, both our community and our city operations, and point out the lowest hanging fruit for us within some rough framework of constraints that we feel imposed upon us. For what it's worth, I'm happy to write documents, but forming the strategy, I think, requires more information than I think that we have available right now. When somebody gives me bullet points, I'll draft up paragraphs for review, but forming the strategy, I just don't feel like I have the information right now.
Those are good observations. Thank you, Dominic. Kermit.
Yeah, I guess one aspect I'm trying to recall, like as far as the timeline, there was the 2010 plan, then there was a 2017 contractor assisted revision, which to my knowledge was never formally finalized or approved, but then formed the basis for a 2020 update effort, which involved everybody on the sustainability committee working on different chapters. And I heard your recapitulation of the process kind of stopping back in 2017 and picking up from there, which leaves me concerned that significant hours of effort and analysis and investment that went into the 2020 update effort are being left on the cutting room floor. And I'm hoping that isn't the case. I'm thinking that there is some very important analysis and proposals that were developed in that process that should somehow be part of completing the plan, because that was what that was all about back in mostly is 2020, as I recall. And I don't know if Kelly or others can confirm that time, that general recollection, but that's one point of concern. And related to that was then a sense that part of what our planning process was going to continue with was not overwriting or forgetting what had been done, but harmonizing what was being developed as part of that work in 2020, along with the comprehensive city plan sustainability chapter that Kelly worked her fingers to the bone on, and how that then factors into public comment might be a little different than the guiding principles and the timeline as it's currently being proposed. But I think there's a lot of significant work that I would not want to see just abandoned, but rather built on or synthesized and incorporated into whatever we finalize at this, or work towards finalizing at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those comments. The comment about the work that has come before, the work that took place in 2020, we definitely do have those drafts and the vision statements that came, or the revised vision statements that came out of that. And then also the suggested activities and indicators. And certainly the ones, especially if we go with the suggested priority, the items in the energy and the greenhouse gas emissions chapters, those rise to the top in terms
Right.
of, candidates for actions to put in, the 3 tiers of activities. Your second, refresh my memory, what was your second comment, Kermit?
It was just kind of a elaboration or clarification of the first, related to the fact that I thought that part of our conversation in 2020 and 2021, as we were kind of kicking this can down the road, was say, we're going to have to harmonize with the comprehensive plan. We're not going to be starting from scratch. And I think it's like, that makes sense, but again, is that reflected in the plan here?
It makes sense as long as there's nothing in the current draft, and I'll say it's the 2020 draft instead of referring back to the 2017. But if there's something in the 2020 plan draft that didn't make it into the comp plan, I don't see why we would work on that. Do you know what I mean? I think the comp plan, the Green City chapter supersedes what was in the Sustainable City plan, unless there's a way to take those elements and work them into one of the strategies or actions that's in the comp plan. And if there is something that didn't make it into the comp plan, we can flag that and say, whenever there's a rewrite to the comp plan, this would be important to include. But I see these plans as, one is explaining all the universal things that need to be done. And the Sustainable City Plan is zeroing in on, here's what we're going to do over this 9-year period. Here's our overarching goal. Here's how we're going to get here. And I wish I was more of an artist so I could draw this, but, and then the Sustainability Committee takes that information and picks, here's what, let's say solar, okay, one of our priority will be achieve this 2030 set of milestones. So one of the metrics we decide to focus on is the number of homes or the number of solar panels that we're having people install on homes in 2023. And that's in the Sustainable City Plan. And then the Sustainability Committee takes that and says, here's how we're going to do this. Here's how we're going to help get us to this goal. We're going to go knocking on everybody's doors, with flyers saying, your house is perfect for solar, or if your house isn't perfect for solar, here's what you can do. We're going to, come up with a matching grant or, matching incentive or rebate to match whatever Focus on Energy is doing. Come up with those types of ideas for our own work plan to help us be pushing all in the same direction to achieve these important interim milestones. Because I really think if we're not doing it, who's going to do it? And if we don't do it, it's just not going to get done. Dick.
Yeah, I like the idea of narrowing the focus, because I think when we discussed this last March, February, about what we needed to do, we were talking about, well, we need to have sustainable land use. We needed to have sustainable and a whole lot of topic areas. And really the Sustainability Committee, as I understand it, came out of the voter referendum, and I'm not sure what year it was, but 2010, or maybe it was later than that, saying we have these energy reduction goals to be sustainable as a community and energy. This sustainable topic can be very broad. And if we have to get into land use and include that, and we did, it was discussed, I think, in the city's comprehensive plan. So I think if we agree that we're going to focus on the most important aspects of sustainability, that maybe go back to the reason for the referendum of these energy goals that you've listed at the bottom, that narrows it somewhat. And it gives us more focus on doing something that maybe is more important, rather than getting lost in the weeds of all the different topics in this, like the land use sustainability. Just, that's a whole area that's probably very important, and maybe the comprehensive plan addressed it, but maybe that's not what our goal should be for the sustainability plan.
Kermit, your hand's still raised. You have a,
I dropped it and then I raised it again, but
Okay.
it happened too quick for you to, but in part, I had something else, but to clarify some things that Dick was saying, I'm not aware of a referendum that is a prior condition or part of any kind of authorizing legislation for the Sustainability Committee. The Sustainability Committee came out of a very different process, and I was chatting with George Zenz at the Good Neighbor Fest about some of the ways he was involved with it. But be that as it may, there was a referendum in 2016. That, however, was more sharply focused on climate change and had two questions. Essentially, one, that should the city of Middleton support federal legislation for a carbon fee and dividend? Overwhelmingly, yes, was the response. And should the city of Middleton make its decisions factoring in the reality and the challenge of the climate crisis? I'm paraphrasing. We can get the exact language if you want, but anyways, so that those referenda set the stage for the climate change focus and for the energy resolution that I think is alluded to in the plan for the plan document here that Lisa just reviewed.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I was getting at. So I had my dates wrong.
And so I think it's valuable as operating framework and political capital to be pointed to, saying, okay, the public is behind this and for this action focused on this area. At the same time, as you mentioned, sustainability is more than just gas, pollution, and energy. But pollution and energy are very central to the climate issue and are definitely, in my book, warranting emphasis. But I am hesitant to shut down engaging other aspects of sustainability, because those aspects are effectively interrelated and interconnected to the kinds of issues we're dealing with if we're trying to really address climate change as well.
sure. I totally agree. Obviously our sustainable city plan covers a lot of ground. There are a lot of aspects of sustainability, one of which is equity and, workforce development. That's someone else's domain, in my opinion. The Water Resources Commission, they've got the water. I think we can weigh in on things such as the fleet, telling the fleet manager it's about time to start buying electric vehicles and equipment. That's, that goes back to the whole concept of sustainability as being like, right now we're the green box in the org chart, and we need to break that up and make sure every box has a little green in it. So I think, as long as there are other committees, commissions and boards that have authority over some of the things in the comp plan and that are in our sustainable city plan, as long as that is the case, we need to direct our efforts to nudging them along, but not
Right.
take on their work. Nobody's
Right.
doing well, I mean, Kelly's doing the energy related work. And I think that, when I think about what is the most important thing our committee can do, it would be to get us to 100% renewable energy by 2050
Right.
for those of us who will be around.
4 minutes. You're here.
And yet
Thanks, Dominic.
the points you made, Lisa, are points that I was also about to make. And so I want to underscore those. We want to, right, sprinkle green throughout the org chart so that it's not just, oh, we'll let sustainability deal with it. And I think in terms of our planning, that needs to be part of what we are organizing and executing to do. And so, again, to whatever extent that's a topic for discussion now, or at least to identify now, great. To the extent it's already hidden in the plan, wonderful. But if it isn't, I want to make sure that it is factored into our discussions going forward for the plan. Because if it's just us, we're doomed. It has to permeate the entire organization of municipal government. It's not just we 10 people, plus a couple of concerned public citizens.
I agree. Okay, well, Dominic gave us a 4-minute warning. I'll look to the members to decide how you want to proceed. Do we want to extend for up to 30 minutes and continue this conversation? Do we want to take a vote on whether to approve at least the concept and the timeline? What's your pleasure?
Well, actually, I don't know what we'll be voting on. I mean, I'm not necessarily wanting to extend it 30 minutes just for this topic, but I have to have a feeling, well, what are we trying to do? I mean, are we agreeing that we're going to do a more focused sustainability? And that means like not including the water sustainability, because the Water Resources Commission actually should be taking the lead on it. I think we could nudge them, but does our plan need to incorporate the sustainability issues related to water? And so I need to have a feeling of what the scope of this is before I could say I want to agree on a timeline.
So it sounds like we have more discussion to do. Are people willing to spend up to 30 minutes discussing it?
I am. I know one thing I would like to do, if it's possible, I would like to go to, or, Zoom into the council meeting tomorrow and give a public comment updating council on what we're planning to do and making some of the remarks like one of our goals is to make sustainability, sprinkle green, sprinkle sustainability amongst all the different city entities. And a tangible example of that would be to have all purchasing of vehicles and equipment, that are in the proposals before the finance committee, have them all, explain whether electric options are available. And if so, why are we not taking those options? The library, I mentioned last time, the bookmobile that the library put in their ARPA funding request. That's a perfect example of, an opportunity to buy electric. And I would like to be able to mention that. Now, I can still do that, show up and say this is in the works, but it would be great to be able to.
As a point of order, I'll say you're also continuing the discussion, but we haven't answered the question, are we going to continue the discussion? I make a motion that we extend the meeting no more than 30 minutes.
I second.
All right, any discussion from the members? Not, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we'll continue until no later than 8:30. So Dick, back to your question, if I may, about the, what would you be approving? I guess I would be asking the members to approve the guiding principles and the approach and the suggested priority. Now, as for your because we can approve the timeline too, but that's got to be flexible. I mean, August to me is the end date, but we might decide for whatever reason that January isn't going to work for public input. But definitely the priority being 100% renewable by 2050, with the focus being the 2030 interim goal, and then the guiding principles and the approach. I can't answer your question about what do we do with the things that aren't energy or greenhouse gas emission related, like the, natural landscaping is a big thing for me. I would love to see everybody in every space in the city be planted with native plants or no mow grass. And I do see how it relates to the carbon goals that we have, but I don't think that can be our focus and really, accelerate our move to renewable energy. I could be wrong. So whether that comes out of the sustainable city plan or that's in an appendix, like here's all the stuff that we were covering originally. And these are on deck, or maybe, in the future, but right now, this time period that's covered by this plan, here's what the focus is. If you want to learn about other sustainability activities, check the appendix. Dick.
Well, for example, under the first item of the approach, can you scroll down, Kelly, so we can see on the list here? The first thing under approach is a little bit above, right there. Finalize vision statements for chapters. I mean, that's chapters of the sustainability plan, right? And so we have to agree on what the chapters will be, because if we have to finalize the vision statements. Well, if we're narrowing the chapter list or the focus, if you will, then that affects everything we have to do. So that's what I'm getting at. I mean, yes, land use and carbon storage is important. And it's also maybe even more important so that we have sustainability on not washing out all our water resources, the Pheasant Branch Conservancy and the flooding over in the research park or the business park. So all these things hinge on, I guess, what the chapters are, which is the vision of what the whole thing is. And that's what I'm getting at. So I thought you were asking us to approve it, but I don't know what the vision statements for the chapters means, because of the number of chapters could be the same ones that were really included in the comp plan. And I like the idea of jettisoning some of those areas, because let somebody else take it on. And mention, of course, that we want sustainability to be included in all commissions and all city activities, that the council would address these things. But so I'm asking for us to, I guess, agree on what the real focus of our sustainability plan is, because I feel right now we're not quite understanding how broad this could get or not.
Okay. Dominic, do you have a comment about the vision statements? Because if you do,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, so that was actually where I was going as well, Dick. When I read the vision statement as currently written, it presents to me, at least at first blush, as a definition of sustainability. And of course, we on the Sustainability Committee, in my mind, should promote sustainability throughout the community as a whole and the municipalities. But we also need to focus our efforts and resources on the urgent problems as are presented to us. And it seems that those two, that tension is effectively the strategy and the vision that we're discussing here. Is we want to promote sustainability citywide, but focus our attention and our efforts as a group on those urgent problems, specifically energy generation and decarbonization. Does that seem like a consistent thread through some of this discussion that I've heard? Because that's certainly how my view is. It is this vision statement is a definition of sustainability, and then we use that definition kind of as the foundation for our broad advocacy.
Thank you for phrasing it the way you did, Dominic. I think that's very helpful. Katie and then Kelly.
I worry that we're going to be too redundant with all these other committees that do exist, like water resources and other committees like that. And I'm wondering if it would behoove us to schedule some joint committee meetings with some of these other committees and find out what they're already doing, tell them our mission, but then, like Dick says, let them do that. It's like water resources planning is the land acquisition. And then, you know, sprinkle the green, if you will, by having these joint meetings and telling them our intentions. And it might be easier because they might go, oh yeah, absolutely, we'll just take this and run, because that's what they already do. And it might just really narrow our work a lot.
I like that, Katie. Thanks for suggesting that. Kelly and then Kermit.
Yeah, I'm struggling to wrap my brain around this, as I always do, and as I always have in my career with sustainability. And I would love to narrow our focus, or my focus, a bit too. I know they're slightly different, the committee and staff, but I also just want to caution that all of my training tells me that so many of these issues are interrelated, that and I know when you talk about decarbonization, that can be super broad. So I know that we're not maybe intentionally narrowing it too much, but for me, sustainability will always be like well-being for all. I do see climate change as one of the most pressing issues, but along with that comes equity. Like you can't decarbonize unless you bring everyone along at the same time. And I don't want to overlook that that's really hard, laborious work too, but I don't want to ignore it. And I mean, I think, you know, as a staff, I can go ahead and work on biodiversity things and other things also. And it would be nice to narrow. I think when we talk to other committees, it will be important to think about that when we go to them. I know recently at a Water Resources Commission, I was there and I forget even what I spoke about or if I was just listening, but the Water Resources chair said to me, you know, we make a lot of water decisions here, but we never think about energy use. Like that's not even part of our deliberations. Should we be doing that? And I mean, it was a kind of a rhetorical question. He knew the answer, but I mean, I don't think necessarily that every other committee has sustainability with the lens that we have when they make their decisions. They may not be thinking more holistically. They might be thinking more technically with their technical expertise. So I don't want to completely relinquish that. But at the same time, I think that's a great idea to talk to other committees and try to spread that, educate about spreading sustainability lens around with decision making.
Great, thanks for that, Kelly. And I totally agree with you about, especially about the equity, and that's why it was important for me that we put in that guiding behind in this. Kermit and then Dick.
Yeah, I think Kelly is, again, blazing the trail as far as making some of the points, raising some of the concerns I was. The particular nuance I'll give is kind of acknowledging, Katie, that the idea of meeting with committees is a good one at its face, However, I don't know, it would be necessary, but not necessarily sufficient to do the job. You know, it's like, it's something I think we need to do. And that's where I think we need to keep within the scope of our planning, how we are going to spin off and or mobilize other committees, other parts of the city to take on the. We had just had a nice little story where it's like, just by being present in the meeting, she was able to inject what sounds like it was kind of a fresh thought or a fresh appreciation. And so I think that's part of it. I think there are other things that we want to think about and come up with as ideas, strategies, and plans to move these ideas out. Again, sprinkle the green. I think I'll adopt that metaphor, that image. Goals we're looking at.
So that meeting with other committees should not be something we do?
It should be something we do, but it's not enough. I don't think it's necessarily enough. Or maybe we'll decide it is, but I think we need to actively plan that and not just say, here's an idea and say, okay, now we're done. I think we need to
But
work on
I'm not
fleshing that
saying
out.
that. I'm not saying that at all.
Okay,
I'm
good.
saying,
Sure.
how else are we gonna know if we're being redundant or not? Unless we meet with these committees.
Yeah.
And then the plan might actually expose itself.
Right.
Well, I think
So yeah,
what
so
Kermit,
I'm saying, but it's part of there's more to the plan than just a committee meeting with another committee.
right,
It's an important
well,
part.
there's
and
more-
I'm not dismissing that. I'm saying, let's not say we're done once we've had that meeting.
right. It's like, we can sprinkle the green, but we also have to rake it in and water it. And so,
And water it.
you know,
And-
Kelly's example of it showing up at a water commission meeting, you know, led to this comment. And, you know, I'm up for the idea of having somebody be a liaison to the committees, or at least make an appearance every quarter at their meetings to remind them, this is, you know, this is what we're trying to do. So Dick, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, for me, the Water Resources Commission, I know many of those people on there, and thinking, you know, I've been advocating, like Katie was saying, for a joint meeting with them for over a year. But Ken Potter, and we've done a tour of the watershed and looking at things. And maybe as we get our vision together, things would go to the various commissions or committees, and as just members of our committee, and remind them and tell them we're hoping they will take on some of the goals of sustainability. The other point I wanted to make was something that Dominic got me thinking about. You know, the sustainability plan is one thing that our committee is doing, but for example, salt-wise, I don't see it as necessarily the central focus of we want a sustainability plan. It could be if we take everything on, but we can still take on these initiatives that are sustainable in our committee with recommendations and whatever for things that we feel strongly about, like salt-wise, for example. But they don't have to be the focus of the sustainability plan. So our committee's efforts can still be the universe of sustainability things, and we would still do them and make recommendations and, you know, whatever we need to do within the city, the various committees or you know, the city staff and all its people. But the sustainability plan doesn't have to encompass everything that we do.
Thanks, Dick. Katie?
Yeah, I love that. Regarding the Salt-Wise program, maybe then we think of these little programs and we say, man, this would be super cool to approach the workforce housing committee with this and ask how we could work together on a project with workforce housing, and which would be the equity, it would be sustainability, and, you know, it would maybe give people who are just owning their new home ideas of cutting down on the salt. And so it would be our way in with little projects like that, what committees are going to be interested in this. And I think little subgroups that go to these different committees with these different ideas would be a really efficient use of our time.
15-minute warning.
Thanks, Dominic, and thanks for that comment, Katie. I think that's a great idea. I think I like this, the salt wise as being a very granular, if you will, example. So, Dick, is your hand still up, or?
I was just commenting on your pun, how bad it was.
It's late. One other reason to keep the vision statements intact the way they are now is the whole public input idea. And you know, one of the things Kelly and I talked about is we want to be able to share with them, here are our ideas for what we think the big priorities should be over this time period. But we want to hear your ideas as well. You know, what is important to you? And I think having well, two things. One, having the original or revised vision statements will give the public something to react to. And if they have ideas, then feel very strongly about some of those elements, I want to be respectful of that and make sure it gets carried forward, whether that's in our sustainable city plan or through this interaction with other committees, commissions, and boards. Remains to be seen, but I want to be able to tell the public we're asking for their input and we want to use it. We don't want to, you know, it's nothing worse than giving your input and having it totally ignored. So I think it's important to keep them in the plan or an appendix, or at least in the early planning stages, so that we can legitimately say we're seeking public input. The flip side of that is, if we really feel like the strong, you know, our strongest case should be made for decarbonization and shifting to renewable energy, then it's up to us as a committee to be persuasive while still respecting people's opinions. But it's up to us to send the message that this is urgent. You know, we picked this for a reason. And that's actually part of our work, I feel, is to be the ones spreading the word that, no, we really need to pay attention to this. This is important. All these other things are super important, but they will not matter if we don't tackle this one as a community. So I think it's, you know, an important part of our mission will be to help people get the information that we think they need in order to, you know, get on board with what we're trying to do.
So what is our, what can we bundle together as a next step in this last 12 minutes? What can we gather momentum around?
Well, again, I would like to get your buy-in to the guiding principles and the approach and the priority, recognizing that at least the timeline is the most malleable of the bunch, except for the August one. But if you all think you need more time to digest this and think about it, like one of the questions I had for the committee is, at what stage do we get the other committees to review the draft plan? Do we do that before going to the public or after going to the public? Kelly, I couldn't remember what happened with the comp plan. Because again, you don't want to go out and get public feedback. And if we get some, we incorporate it, and then the committees review it and say, nope, this is unworkable. We don't like that. Let's take it out. So you know, that's a real specific example of a question I have, but I think the suggested priority is the biggest thing. And the guiding principles, do we leave anything out?
Well, to that end, I think what we've been discussing is a certain synergy with existing city infrastructure, both people and systems. And that sounds like guiding principle number 10, something that speaks to our desire to support rather than replicate existing decision-making authorities and experts. Complement is maybe a word that we like. I could get behind adding that.
Or
Okay.
is there a way to phrase sprinkle the green into the guiding principles?
Better than sprinkle the green?
I don't, I kind of like it. It's metaphorical. It's
Well, and Kelly and I did talk about, a vision for what the final plan or on the website, what it would look like. And one of the things was going to be a graphic showing the relationship between the comp plan and the sustainable city plan and our work plan. And then also this, it would have to be like, animation to show we're right now the green box, but we need everybody to have some green. So, Dick?
Yeah, I mean, back up to number 1 here on the guiding principles that you're showing there. I mean, basically it's saying we will help Middleton meet the goals the Common Council has set in the comprehensive plan. Well, the comprehensive plan is pretty broad. So our guiding principle for sustainability plan, we might want to state up here that it's more focused, recognizing the importance of various issues and topics. But right up here, we maybe want to say what our focus would be, rather than saying we're going to take what the Common Council has set in the comprehensive plan and deal with it. So I think rather than approve it right now, we've had some good discussion, maybe Lisa, you and Kelly and anybody else you want to bring into it. Dominic's had some good ideas with others too. Rethink this and refine it a little bit and bring it back to the next meeting so we can react to it and vote on it rather than I think we can improve this rather than just vote on what you've got. And you got a good start, but I think we've talked about some things that you might want to tweak it.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. And then Dominic?
I was just going to say for the newer members too, don't forget we do have an energy plan where we did look at more of the climate change focused energy usage in the city. And it also does include some community-wide policies outside of city government. So there's a ton of data and work and groundwork that's been laid with the energy plan. And then we have our comp plan and our resolution. So we do have, we're not like trying to totally reinvent or like, what should we do as a sustainability committee? Like we do kind of have some marching orders and some prioritizing, but the comp plan definitely, to be useful, it needs to be narrowed and prioritized as for the sustainability work.
And Kelly, do the new members have access to all these documents, or are they all now linked on our website?
They are all now linked on the website. Yep.
Okay. Dominic, then Kermit?
One thing that I note is I don't see a definition of we in the guiding principles, like who owns this plan, who's the driver of this plan. I assumed it was us, but maybe I'm wrong.
It is us, but we can make that clear. Kermit?
Yeah. I was going to offer framing this as a provisional working document that we can begin implementing subject to refinement and revision as we proceed. Time feels of the essence, and waiting another month to say we're moving forward feels counterproductive. So I'd be willing to make a motion to approve this as a provisional working draft or working document for our plan, subject to refinement and improvement.
Okay, there's a motion from Kermit.
I would second that.
Dominic seconds. Kelly, did you get the full motion?
It's to make a motion to approve this as a provisional working document.
Subject to future refinements,
Future refinements.
if that isn't implied clearly by the provisional nature.
Okay. All right, any discussion? Dick?
Well, all I would ask is there something that there is discussion we've had tonight that might change things here? So can we update that first before we vote on it? And that means that I guess Kelly and Lisa would have to take their notes and go back and provide something. I mean, I guess,
Well, I think
Yeah,
that's what Kermit, I think that's why he put in the part about the refinement. So Kelly and I can take this, either way, Kelly and I will take this and refine it to, present again or, share with the committee in October. But at the same time, but if we take Kermit's route, then we can also start to move forward on some other parts of it. If that makes sense.
okay.
And have more to present to you than just the square one step of, do you approve? Does that meet your needs? Kermit's?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
For me,
All right.
yeah.
Well, then let's vote on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Okay, so we have a provisional working document. That's exciting. And a lot of great ideas. I was actually thinking this meeting, I'm going to go back and watch the videotape because I took notes, but so I'm going to live through it twice. It was this much fun. But great discussion, everyone. Let's move on to our very last agenda item, which is ideas for next time. Does anybody have, in addition to our usual work plan updates, we've got, of course, the Sustainable City Plan will be a standing agenda item now. Anything else that we need to talk about? Kelly, budget stuff, anything?
Does anyone feel like they want to talk about the operating budget for the rest of the year? Mark Sullivan and Alder did bring up during the budget talks, it wasn't on the agenda, but he did bring up when he saw our operating budget as 10,000, he was sort of taken aback and said, why does sustainability have $10,000 when the other committees have 5? And he wants me to send him a ledger with all the background of all of our spending to justify having that $10,000. So I feel like we're gonna have to have a plan that's a valid plan to spend it, which would help our case, or be subject to losing that next year.
Okay.
I think we
Kelly?
definitely want to have budget on the agenda.
Yeah, put budget on the agenda, and in your letter, make sure you mention we're an award-winning committee. So it takes resources to win awards. And if you can let me know where approximately in that meeting, because I watched the video and I was looking for a part where he brought this up and I couldn't find it. So, but I wasn't watching the entire thing. So
It was pretty late, wasn't it, Kelly?
I honestly can't remember. It was over a 3-hour meeting.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
okay.
But it caught me. I was like kind of looking down and I jerked awake for that.
All right, I'll watch for the part where you jerk awake. Katie,
might I
and
suggest any additional agenda items be emailed to Lisa and Kelly?
That's a
If we
good
do that,
idea.
we can adjourn the meeting at 8:29 and meet our commitment.
All right, great.
Move
Well,
to adjourn.
there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for hanging in there, and good luck to the groups working on your stuff. And Kelly, we're looking forward to getting our press release. This is really exciting, but don't everybody spread the word until the press release comes out. I won't mention it in my council remarks tomorrow as much as I'd like to. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Didn't hear the kids at all,